Diplomatic relations between Canada and India continue to nosedive days after Justin Trudeau's allegations that India was behind wanted criminal Hardeep Nijjar's killing in Canada. After a diplomat each was sent back, travel advisories by both countries yesterday. Today, India suspended visa processing till further notice for those wanting to visit India from Canada. Meanwhile, Canada missions have asked for more security of their diplomats in India, alleging threat to them, while also saying that they are adjusting the staff strength in India. Let me break down what the Indian Ministry of External Affairs has said today on the entire episode with Canada. So firstly, on stopping the visa service, the MEA has said that due to threats that Indian diplomats have been facing in Canada, day-to-day working has become difficult. Remember, there have been threats issued quite openly online against Indian diplomats working in Canada. So therefore, they will review as this goes along. The Indian MEA has also revealed that they brought up parity in diplomatic presence with Canada and asked for their numbers to be reduced as they were higher than India's numbers in Canada. On the allegations made by Canadian Prime Minister, MEA said that these allegations are politically motivated. No specific evidence has been shared by Canada as far as the Nijjar killing is concerned. Meanwhile, the MEA stressed that our information, the information that India has provided, has not been acted upon by Canada. Remember, India has been raising specific cases of wanted criminals who have taken refuge in Canada for many decades now. The MEA even said today the larger issue is terrorism, terror funding and safe havens in Canada. This is a big statement given that we have reserved terms and words like safe havens for terror only for countries like Pakistan so far. Meanwhile, another wanted criminal was killed in Canada. Let me tell you more about who Sukhdeep Singh was. He is said to be a gangster of the Davinder Bambina gang. He's also someone who's been killed in an alleged inter-gang rivalry in the Winnipeg area. Sukha, as he was also known as, hailed from Punjab's Moga district. He had fled to Canada in 2017 using a forged passport, as many of these criminals do. He allegedly funded Bambia gang in Punjab, Haryana and Delhi. He faced many extortion charges in India. He'd been orchestrating crimes in Punjab and nearby states, as I mentioned, and he had as many as 20 criminal cases registered against him. Meanwhile, Indian-Canadian leaders and forums have raised alarm over targeted hate speech against them that is going unnoticed by the Canadian government. Remember, SFJ, which is Sikhs for Justice Khalistani Group Chief Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, has issued an open thread against Hindus in Canada. He asked all Indo-Canadian Hindus to leave the country. This is in addition to threatening our diplomats, which has been going on for quite some time. Now, Canadian MP Chandra Arya has brought attention to this. He spoke about the Hindu community being in fear and being made a soft target in Canada. Hindu Forum Canada has also written to Justin Trudeau and the government's ally NDP's Jagmeet Singh, who continue to turn a blind eye to such threats that are coming from Khalistani elements based in Canada. The forum has actually urged the government to recognize Pannu's statement as hate crime. And many are asking, how is this free speech? Remember, Justin Trudeau has been talking about Canada standing for free speech and more. But this doesn't fall in that ambit, which is precisely the point that Indians have been making, and neither do secessionism and raising hate against India. That is our next question precisely. Is Canada emboldening hate against India as a country and also Indians, but specifically Indo-Canadians that are actually living in Canada?
Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty. In the strongest possible terms, I continue to urge the government of India to cooperate with Canada to get to the bottom of this matter.
The issue of safe havens and places to operate is being provided abroad, including in Canada. We would expect that that is the main focus. The question is, do we have the political will to address terrorism? or we want to justify it and condone it.
I can't understand how glorification of terrorism or a hate crime targeting a religious group is allowed in the name of freedom of speech and expression. There would be an outrage in Canada if a white supremacist attacked any group of racialized Canadians, asking them to get out of our country. But apparently, this Khalistani leader can get away with this hate crime.
So lots of questions are now mounting for Justin Trudeau and his government from within. There are members of his own government and others who have started to speak out. Let me go across to our guest joining us. Veena Sikri is former Indian diplomat. Also Manan Gupta is an immigration consultant who's joining us live from Brampton, joining us. We're also waiting for Dean Baxendale, a columnist from Toronto. Veena Sikri, I want to understand from you, the kind of statements that the MEA has made today. They are some of the strongest statements that India has made for any country. In fact, they have talked about safe havens for terror in Canada. These are words we reserve only for countries like Pakistan so far. What do you make of the MEA's response?
I think the MEA is fully justified. The Ministry of External Affairs and the Government of India are fully justified in the statements they have made, because it is unconscionable, it is unbelievable that the Prime Minister of Canada, in a statement in Parliament, is accusing India of participation in the killing of this terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in the month of June, without providing a shred of evidence. Not a shred of evidence. The most important point made by our spokesman today was this: there is no evidence. And even the words used by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, credible allegations of a potential link.
Yes,
yes. Nothing has been proved. Now, the point is, for 3 months, the month of June, when the murder took place, for 3 months, presumably, the Canadian police had been mounting some investigations and inquiries. And if they have any evidence, they should share it with the Indian government and discuss it. But nothing of the sort was done. And instead, Prime Minister Trudeau chooses to make this statement in Parliament based on this kind of a completely unacceptable allegation based on hearsay, based on a lack of evidence. Now, I think that the reaction, and then he also expelled a senior Indian diplomat. The Indian government was fully within its right to take counter action to expel expel a Canadian senior diplomat from Delhi. But then the point comes that look at the ongoing activity in Canada by these Khalistani separatist groups. Now, they have called for all Hindus to leave Canada. Now, can you imagine that, you can call for this kind of division between communities in Canada, which says it is a pluralist democracy, on the basis of religion?
No, and the worst is that none of the Canadian government members are willing to show the same alacrity on these statements that they show, for example, on Nijjar's killing. I believe we've lost the link for Manan Gupta. I wanted to go across to him. But till that time, I do want to ask you, Veena Sikri, about India taking that move, although they've said this is for operational reasons, India taking that move to halt visa processing. In fact, let me take that to Manan Gupta. Many people believe this is, of course, the Brahmastra that India holds. Processing of visas to be held. And they've not directly linked it to the fact that, Canada has been escalating the issue with India, but they have said that Indian diplomats are under threat and in danger in Canada, which is affecting their day-to-day working. How do you look at the steps that India has taken, and what are the responses you are hearing in Canada over that?
Well, thank you very much for having me, and definitely today's announcement related to the suspension of Indian visas from Canadian consulates and High Commission, definitely it has not been well received. There is a lot of concern amongst Indian diaspora. There is a lot of confusion that what lies ahead, because many of the Indian diaspora, they have OCI cards, which is Overseas Citizen of India card. So people don't know what is coming up, because it's going to be a very busy festive season. People travel a lot during upcoming months. So there is a bit of a panic. But having said that, issuing visas is a prerogative of any country. So India has taken that harsh step today. We don't know what Canada is going to reciprocate. But right now, there is a bit of confusion, anxiety, and a lot of panic.
Okay. Dean Bexendale is also joining us. Dean, I want to understand from you, where do you see this going? Many felt that Justin Trudeau should not have made the public allegations he did, plunging Indo-Canadian relationships to perhaps the lowest level ever. And there's no saving this anymore, because while he says that he doesn't want to escalate or provoke India, the Canadian actions are exactly to the contrary. So one, what do you read into Justin Trudeau's actions, and where do you see this going?
First of all, thank you for having me on today. This is obviously accelerated in terms of the reactions and on both sides here. I think the reality is that Justin Trudeau, based on the information that he believes to be valid, the Canadian government had CSIS and probably RCMP came to India and probably had a number of discussions with their intelligence counterparts with respect to what they had seen and shared that information. I think that the denial by the Indian government is obviously appropriate. We're not, hopefully India is not going around assassinating people. Having said that, Justin Trudeau has accelerated this in the public in Canada. It looks like for political gain. Ultimately, he needs to come out showing that he's actually combating foreign interference and maybe using this in part to deflect from the real issue, which surrounds China and China's infiltration, espionage operations in Canada. In part, listening today to watching the presser from the Indian government foreign affairs, I found it quite fascinating that he brought up the organized crime elements inside Canada, and that these in part are funding terrorist actions by Sikh separatists that have been in this country for some time and have been of concern to the Indian government. So I think that Justin Trudeau and the government has seen foreign interference. India has been engaged in Canada in terms of counterintelligence and intelligence operations for 40 plus years. This is done all the time, so this should be nothing new. CSIS is well aware of it, as would the American counterparts of such operations. But where this goes right now is anybody's guess, and I would suggest that we need to dial back, these actions and sit down again and work on solutions for both sides.
Maybe that ship has sailed, at least as far as Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister. But I do want to ask you, is there no concern in Canada that a lot of these Khalistani elements, which I'm sure many of the Canadian society is well aware of because they've been there in Canada for quite some decades, is there no concern that they issue death threats against Indian diplomats? They're now particularly targeting Hindu Indo-Canadians, and the government seems to be doing nothing. Those threats don't fall under freedom of speech.
Yeah, well, so let's just go back here very quickly. Niger was actually given his Canadian citizenship by the former government under Stephen Harper. So it was not Justin Trudeau that gave him his citizenship. So I think that should be noted for all Indian viewers and viewers around the world. But to answer your question, the diaspora community, both Sikhs and Hindus inside Canada, actually are quite concerned on both sides, and that from the Sikh side, they feel as if the Indian government is leveraging this against them. And they feel very uncomfortable. And on the other side, there has been a ratcheting up over a number of years of what I would consider almost hate speech by people within the Sikh community. And by the way, we're talking a very, very small number of individuals that are inciting this kind of
I get that. Actually, this is not about the Sikh community in Canada. What I'm asking is the responsibility to act against those, small number of individuals that you talk about, even if they're ratcheting up the hate speech. The responsibility lies with the Canadian government to clamp down on them. We don't see that happening.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But this speaks to a larger and bigger issue around transnational repression and operations inside various Western democracies, where governments are afraid to confront, diaspora communities for fear of being called racist and taking a particular party line.
Okay,
However,
I'm not sure if that's what's playing out here, Dean, with due respect, because I don't think in this case, attacking of the Hindu community is not being spoken about because of fears of racism. In fact, the fact that Hindu community attacks are not being spoken about is racism. But in any case, I'll go give a final comment to both of our other guests as well. Veena Sikri, this is fundamentally the issue. One, onus of proof is now on Justin Trudeau's government since they went public with these allegations. And secondly, it is also the onus on them to ensure the safety of Indo-Canadians, the ones who are particularly being targeted by these Khalistanis.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I'm very surprised that your commentator from Canada did not even have the courtesy to say a word that it is wrong to attack people on the basis of their religion, or that it is wrong. He's admitting that there's a very small number of the people who are preaching secessionism for India and the Khalistani separatists. Why can't action be taken against them? How would a small microscopic minority of a group in Canada, if they're taken action against for what they are doing, the wrong speech, hate speech they are making, how would that amount to racism? I think it's amazingly double-sided, the talk coming out of Canada. Yeah. And there is absolutely no concern, because when their own Quebec separatist movement is there, or their own truckers in Canada go on the streets, the action against them is very swift.
Yeah, and here a tiny minority of individuals cannot be acted upon. Can I also tell, for the benefit of our viewers, that most of the criminals who have escaped from India, the largest percentage have actually taken refuge in Canada. So that's, this is a historical issue that India has been raising. It has nothing to do with Nijjar or his killing alone. But Manan, I have a final minute left. I want to understand from you, what are the frustrations of the Indian community in Canada, given that the Sikh community does not bat for Khalistan, certainly not a majority of them. The Hindu community is extremely peaceful, is peaceful all over the world, not just in Canada. So what are the frustrations of the Indian community there? Why doesn't the Canadian government act on that small minority that is bringing such a bad name to everybody, the Canadians included?
Yeah, absolutely. Indian diaspora has been in Canada for 100+ years, and they have really done well in all aspects of Canadian lifestyle, whether it's economy, social ties, political ties, business ties. They have really given back to Canada. The whole goal behind the whole goals of the community is to stay together in harmony, but there are fringe elements which do cause such concerns, and they have been causing these concerns from last many decades. So the elephant in the room, the government of Canada very well knows. They really need to handle it on a diplomatic level, roundtable discussions, table talks. These are the ways the talks need to be moved forward, because we are seeing a lot of anxiety amongst parents, newcomers, students, and a lot of immigrants, those who want to come to Canada.
All right. Well, some of those will be collateral issues that will come into this entire fight, because the fight has escalated to a level we've not seen in recent past. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Time for us to slip into a very short break. On the other side, we're getting a very special conversation with Naina Lal Kidwai on the historic Women's Reservation Bill becoming a reality in India.
Brought to you by
the comment where you said that there should be parity in strength between the different diplomatic missions. Are you saying that the current reduction in the Canadian mission today was a result of an Indian request to downsize its presence in New Delhi, or was it an active measure taken by Canada to do so? Can you clarify that the parity statement you made?
Siddhan.
Hi sir, I'm Siddhant from CNN News 18. Sir, a former diplomat has made a comment on a national TV a week back, saying that there was always a trouble for Indian Army officers to get visa, those who have served in specific locations in India like Jammu Kashmir, northeastern state, to get Canadian visa. Was Ministry aware about it, and have we ever raised this issue to the Canadians? And also, sir, my follow-up question, E.M. Jaishankar
I haven't even answered. How can you have a follow-up question?
Sir, E.M. Jaishankar is in New York, sir. We're being told.
No, sir. Honorable Minister is in Parliament.
Yes, sir.
Follow-up question called off. Yeshi, I'll come to everybody. I assure you, there's time. Yeshi.
This is Yeshi.
Microphone, please.
This is Yeshi Seri from the New Indian Express. When Prem Trudeau was in Delhi for the G20, did he raise this issue of Nijar whilst he was here with the Prime Minister? Did he make these allegations that he's raising in Parliament, or did this come as a surprise to all of us? During
Who's
the
us?
Us meaning India, because he was here and he had a meeting with the PM Modi, and Khalistan issue was raised over there. Did this come up in the conversation at all?
Okay. Yeah, behind. It's just many hands. I'll come to all of you guys. Wait.
Sir, we also have a e-visa process. Parikshit from CNBC.
Thank you, Parikshit.
So we also have an e-visa process. Has that been suspended as well? And does this temporary suspension of visas apply to all categories? The Canadian Embassy, we are getting to know from associations, travel associations, that they're still issuing visas.
Who?
The Canadian Embassy. Do we have any clarity whether Canada has also taken reciprocal action and stopped?
Okay. You had, yes ma'am? I'll come to you. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm Amity from Business Line. The Canadian High Commission has said in a statement today that some of its diplomats have been facing threats on various social media platforms, and they have also cited the Vienna Convention and said that they would be expecting the host government to provide security. So will there be a reassessment of the security situation as far as the Canadian High Commission is concerned?
Okay. Let me finish that, sir. Kallol, I'll come to this side then.
Kallol Bhattacharjee from The Hindu. Sir, yesterday the Australian Foreign Minister reminded the issue of rule of law, and they believe that, say, a terrorist should be dealt through that process. So I really want to know what is the current Indian perspective on that.
On rule of law?
When it comes to dealing with terrorism, do you think that rule of law is something that India would follow when dealing with a terrorist or an alleged terrorist who is away from Indian shores and Indian arms of justice?
You want the answer to that?
How would you deal with the Australian Foreign Minister's remarks?
I wouldn't, but I'll give you a response to your query. Reza? I'll come to you, ma'am.
Reza from the Hindustan Times. Just wanted a quick clarification about the advisory we had issued yesterday. It had a very specific mention about politically condoned hate crimes. Are we saying that the Canadians haven't acted with alacrity on hate crimes of this nature?
Okay. Somebody else had a hand up? Yeah. I'll come this side. I think this. Oh, no. You had a hand up. Sorry. Apologies. You had a hand up. Yeah, go ahead. No. Yeah. Okay. You want to do first? Go ahead.
I'm Sunita from Times Now Bharat.
Is the microphone on?
Sunita from Times Now Bharat. सर जो कनाडा में इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स स्टक हैं उनके पेरेंट्स बहुत वरिड हैं यहाँ पे उनके लिए क्या?
Okay. I'll come back to this side. Yeah. Rishabh, I just give you anything, but you did a question. Follow up? Okay, go ahead.
So, follow up from my last question itself. Is there any particular reason for the reduction of numbers of diplomat?
Okay. Yeah.
सर मैं जो वैंकूवर में इंडियन कॉन्सुलेट
इंट्रोड्यूस कर लें हम जस्ट फॉर सिंपल
विजयलक्ष्मी हूँ इंडिया टीवी से सर जो मार्च 2023 में हमला हुआ था भारतीय कॉन्सुलेट पे सैन फ्रांसिस्को में उस पर क्योंकि एनआईए ने 10 एक्यूज की लिस्ट यहाँ पर जारी की है लोगों से जानकारी मांगी है अगस्त में हमारी एक टीम भी वहाँ गई थी उस पर कोई अपडेट किस तरह का वहाँ से हमें मिल रहा है
ओके या कृष्ण
Hi sir, it's Krishnan Kaushik from Reuters. So, building on Reza's question, India had issued the advisory which mentioned growing anti-India activities and politically condoned hate crimes. Can you provide any specifics if they were shared or if they are any that you can share with us?
Okay. बताइए आपका या माइक्रोफोन यू आर सरप्राइज्ड गो अहेड
सर मैं मुकेश कौशिक हूँ दैनिक भास्कर से सर जैसा कि आपने कहा कि कनाडा में सेफ हेवन्स हैं टेररिस्ट के तो पाकिस्तान में तो हम टैकल कर लेते थे सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक वगैरह से इन सेफ हेवन्स को आप कैसे टैकल करेंगे G20 की भागीदारी के बाद ट्रूडो की ये सब डिप्लोमेटिक स्पार सामने आया है
एक क्वेश्चन ले ले
ये दो
अच्छा
क्या ये G20 की हिस्सेदारी में जो उनके साथ हुआ या उनको बताया गया कि वहाँ पर सेपरेटिस्ट एलिमेंट से आप नहीं निपट रहे हैं क्या उसके रिएक्शन में ये सब हो रहा है
क्या हो रहा है
important do you see as a woman leader in your field itself, the Women Reservation Bill?
I think this is a historic bill. It should have happened earlier. I'm very, very happy to see that it is on our agenda now. I'm frustrated that the process itself may stretch to implementation in 2029 rather than right now. But in terms of the fact that it is a big step forward, I think very, very critical. I should add that at the very start of my career in corporate affairs, I was very against quotas. I believe that those of us women who made it on merit, and if quotas came, they detracted from those of us who had come in. But over time, I converted to a totally different view, recognizing that I was wrong, and actually lauded the SEBI requirement when it came in, insisting on one woman on every listed company board, or at least the large listed companies to start with. And the results were there to see. We went from 6% representation in 2013 of women on corporate boards to 18%, and dare I say, I believe it may be upwards of 20 now, given that the 18% was a couple of years ago in terms of the census that was taken at the time.
I was going to ask you a little bit more about what you touched upon. As far as reservations are concerned, they're always seen as anti-merit. Whether it is in politics or, especially the field that you come from, which is of business and corporate affairs. So when you say that you've changed your perspective as far as quotas itself are concerned, could you elaborate a little bit more? Why do you today feel that quotas are the best solution in this case?
Sadly, the real reason is just the abject failure of otherwise attempting to get women to push and push against closed doors in what is traditionally seen as a man's world. And it doesn't stay a man's world once women enter and demonstrate that they can hold their own. And in our own country, the reservation that started with the panchayats, we have seen how that has changed. And yes, it gave rise to the Sarpanch Pati. It gave rise to women who were the front with guys moving from behind.
Yes.
We have equally shown that while this may be the first wave for women who have got re-elected, and by certainly the third phase, these women have come into their own. And even while they allowed their husbands to tweak and pull and push from behind, their status in society, the women empowerment that came with it, their status in the family, their status in the community did change. And with that change, it drove others to also emulate them. So I do believe to make that step change, this quota, which may well be something which is misused, it can be that people put up their wives and daughters and actually lead from behind. I think that we have to now look much closer as to the enactment and the law, because knowing that these things can happen, how do we ensure that they don't happen? How can we have the rules and processes and systems which try and protect and even more empower and enable women? And what I mean by that is, it's all very well ticking the box on percentages, but are we going to create an environment in which women thrive in Parliament? Will there be a creche in Parliament that enables these women to come in and work as equals? Where are the women's toilets? Are they treated as second-class citizens? Is there comment on their dress code when there isn't on men? So that entire environment has to be looked at in terms of what is right behavior and what is permitted.
Speaking of that, do you believe that these reservations are better as time-bound as is currently provided for, although that time can be extended beyond 15 years? Or do you feel that they should be not time-bound at all?
So I think I like the idea of a sunset clause, and the 15 years sounds like a very reasonable period with the ability to extend it. Because I think once you achieve it, and we've seen this now, say, on corporate boards, there isn't likely to be a slippage away. In fact, what we're seeing is that the better boards and larger listed ones are, without this being the regulation, already seeking 1/3 corporate board representation on their boards, because they realize that that is best practice. So the movement from going from one up to more on the boards has certainly happened. So I don't see the change happening backwards, even in this quota and reservation sort of movement. And I would even hesitate to call it reservation. It is really about rightful representation. And I believe once, and we will get to 1/3 in 15 years, then the clause can go and we can come back into a regime where it is on merit, it is based on women having found their voice to continue and to grow. If we haven't reached there, which would be a real shame, then of course there should be extension of this, including a strong review every 3 years as to how we were progressing, what is failing, and ensure that when we reach that 15-year mark, we are there. And of course, if we're not there, then an extension, but I hope that that is not what we will live to see.